Hi there, and welcome to this video, which is going to be introducing the political ideas aspect of your Politics A-Level. This is for the Edexcel Politics A-Level, but of course there are similarities to what AQA and others may have there as well. And political ideas slash ideology, we're talking about the same thing here. And it appears in several places on your exam paper. So we're just going basically through the practicals, first of all, of what's actually going to appear on the exam paper. Now, you have paper 1, paper 2, and paper 3 in your Politics A-Level, and political ideas will appear on paper 1 and paper 2, not paper 3. And they will be divided up, not in any way that necessarily relates to the rest of it. So when you're talking about UK government, or whether you're talking about UK politics, which is the other parts of paper 1 and paper 2, the ideologies, again, they're distinct, they're separate from that. There is no connection between them. And in fact, there is no real connection between political ideas and the rest of the course. Yes, of course, there are connections in terms of, like, the Conservative Party is more likely to be conservative, and the Labour Party at some points in its history has elements of kind of socialism within it, etc., etc. But when we talk about political parties in your Politics A-Level, we're not referring to political ideas, and when we're talking about political ideas, we are very rarely referring to political parties, only really when you can kind of say, well, here's an example of it in action. But even then, it's probably best in your head to really just separate out political ideas from everything else you do in politics, because all those bits about US politics, UK government, all that kind of stuff is very kind of practical. It's based on kind of like real life examples of things that have kind of happened. It's about building up an argument, whereas political ideas exist in its own bubble, separate from everything else, theoretical, talking about philosophers and thinkers and those kind of aspects. And it also requires you to use a different kind of essay technique, because it's worth different number of marks, so it's worth 24 marks rather than 30, so they're going to be slightly shorter. But also, when you look at the 30-mark essays, it always says, I think it's evaluate the view is the little sentence kind of stem. And in those ones, you're going to need to be either basically saying, yes, I agree, or no, I disagree. Whereas these ones in political ideas, it's going to be asking you to what extent is there agreement, is there disagreement, tends to be the general thing, but it's to what extent, which means your conclusion is going to be far more nuanced. It's going to be, well, that whilst there is agreement here, there is fundamental disagreement here, or vice versa. So rather than kind of a full on here or full on there, you're more likely to be kind of pulling in shades of grey or aspects like that. So it is a very different part of the A-Level. So how does it actually kind of fit together? If I can just bring this one up, hopefully this will come up here. So on paper 1, you have conservatism, liberalism, and socialism, and the exam will have 2 questions on it. Not 2 questions from liberalism, 2 questions from conservatism, 2 questions from socialism, but 2 questions, which could come from any of those 3 ideologies. So it could be one from liberalism and one from conservatism, or it could be one from liberalism and another one from liberalism. That can come up. So it can be any combination of those 3 topics for those 2 questions, and you will pick one. So you will not be answering both of those questions. You will look at the 2, decide the one you want to take on, and you just do that one, and that will be worth your 24 marks. And these are known as the core ideologies here in paper 1 above my head: liberalism, conservatism, socialism, the core ideologies. Now in paper 2, there's actually a load of non-core ideologies, and you'll be taught one. Now at the moment, I'm teaching anarchism as my non-core ideology, but alternatives might be feminism, nationalism, ecologyism. There's a variety that you can choose from. The difference here is that if there will be 2 questions on every ideology. So anarchism, there will be 2 anarchism questions, and you can choose one of them. You are not required to do anarchism and feminism, or etc., etc. You're just required to do one ideology which you have studied and to choose one question. There is no real advantage in doing, say, anarchism and feminism, because you are never going to answer a question from each, and so therefore I would suggest with your limited time and resources you plunge into the ideology which either you've been taught or that is your favorite, or whatever. The reasons why I'm doing anarchism, I'll explain when I get to kind of the anarchism videos, but that is how it's set up. So basically, whether it's paper 1 or paper 2, you answer one question. There will be a choice of 2 and you answer one. The big difference being, of course, that there are 3 possible topics that could come up on paper 1, and there is only 1 possible topic that can come up on paper 2, which perhaps makes paper 2 slightly simpler from a political ideas perspective, or certainly less to revise, but maybe the ideologies themselves are a little bit trickier to kind of get your head round. So, well, what do you need to know when it comes to each core ideology? Well, the first, or each ideology in general, or each political idea, the first thing you need to know is the core ideas about each one. What is socialism? If someone is a socialist, then what are the core things that they will believe? Same with liberalism and same with so on. And there's some key terms that you will need to know and understand and be expected to use in your essays. You will also be expected to know what the political idea says about these 4 aspects: human nature, state, society, and the economy. And often your questions will be related to one of those topics. So, to what extent do liberals agree about the role of the state? Could be an example question. And so you need to know all 4 of these ideas and how that fits into ideologies. But then they go quite nicely together, because if you look at them, human nature, so what are humans actually like? Good, bad, free, trapped, whatever. What is the state and what should its role be? By state here we mean the kind of the government. Should it be large and doing lots of things in our lives? Should it be small? Should it be tiny, doing as little as possible? Should we have no state at all? Society, how should we interact with one another? What should kind of the relationships between us be like? And of course the economy, which is things, money, capitalism, privatization, nationalization, that kind of thing. And of course the core ideas will very much link to the economy. And when you start to understand these political ideas, you'll see that all of these things are linked, and there's a beautiful kind of synergy between them, because what they believe about human nature will therefore impact on what they think a society will be like, and therefore what a state's role will have to be, and therefore how the economy will work under that. So they're all kind of linked, but you need to kind of know them distinct and as a group. You need to know the divisions between each one. So the exam specification, which I have a copy of here, specifies exactly what elements of those ideologies you need to know. So for example, in liberalism, you need to know classic liberals and modern liberals. So these are 2 different types of liberals that agree over some things but disagree over others. And you need to know those 2 different attitudes, or in some cases 3 different attitudes. And you need to know how the thinkers kind of relate, and we'll come back to that in a second. If you say, it says, for example, to what extent do liberals agree over the economy? If you just write about liberals, or if you just write about one type of liberal, then you will hit a wall, and you can only get, well, I've written D grade maximum. It's technically, I think it's band 2, which is highly likely to be around the kind of D grade maximum. So you definitely need to know as you go in what the ones you need to know are here. Now, a bit of advice: there are more types of liberal, socialist, conservatives than appears in the specification. However, you do not need to know them, and it's actually fairly unlikely that you would pick up any extra marks for doing so. So I'll give you an example here. In liberalism, you need to know about classic liberals and modern liberals. There are other types of liberals, such as neoliberalism and so on. Do not write about them if they're not on the specification, because the exam board and the examiner is not expecting you to know them, and you aren't going to be benefiting yourself in doing so. So you need to know the specified divisions. And lastly, you need to know about the key thinkers. Each ideology has been assigned 5 key thinkers by the exam board, and they're listed, and there has been some disagreements about whether the thinker's in the right place, and why is this thinker here and why is this other thinker not here, and blah 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 blah. Just deal with it, accept it. Each ideology has been assigned 5 key thinkers. Now, but say you're like, oh, hang on a minute, I really want to talk about this other thinker as well. Can I do so? Yes. Yes, you can. Yes, you absolutely can. You can receive credit for it. You can get marks for it. But you must have at least 2 key thinkers in your essay. If you do not, then again, you're going to top out at band number 2, and your grade will suffer as a result. So if you brought in one key thinker and another key thinker and then another thinker that's not a key thinker, that's absolutely fine. But if you brought in one key thinker and then another thinker that's not the key thinker, you would not have hit that minimum requirement of 2, and therefore your marks would be vastly diminished. Now, the key thinkers, there's lots to say about each one, and this is really where you're going to be making yourself stand out. So when you're talking about the divisions, when you're talking about these kind of key words here, it's actually the key thinkers that will really help you to put more detail into what these aspects are. So classic liberals think such and such about the state, as was said by John Locke, and blah, 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 and he said this and he said blah. But on the other hand, other liberals think this, and this was done by this key thinker. So the more key thinkers and the more you know about them, and the more kind of quotes you have from them and ideas you have from them, the more you're going to be able to bulk out this 24 mark essay. Remember, it is 24 marks, not 30 marks. It is going to be shorter than a larger one. We'll be talking about our structures. I think I'll probably do a video on exam technique for political ideas, so this video doesn't come too long. But key thinkers is think of these first 3 as your basics. Think of the key thinkers as the ones that will then push you to the A once you have the basics all in turn. The last thing I'd like to talk about in this particular video as an introduction is that ideologies and political ideas are a reflection of their time and often a reaction against the previous ideology. And to help us understand a political idea, it is always helpful to remember that it was invented or thought of or conceived at a certain point in history. And therefore, a belief which might seem unusual or bizarre or an overreaction or just completely impractical to us, at that time, at that moment, may have seemed rational and tangible and important and credible, because either that was what society needed, or they were reacting to something that had come before that needed to be undone. Now, that doesn't mean you can't think that an idea is still insane or whatever, or extreme, but I want you to kind of keep that idea in mind, that there is a timeline to these ideologies which explains a lot of what they think and what the thinkers were trying to get to. So just as a kind of an overview here, I'm oversimplifying, but if we say that society as a whole goes through periods of monarchies and dictators, think Britain up until the kind of the 1700s. Essentially, you have monarchy dictatorships. William the Conqueror saying do this, do that, and everyone has to follow it. Yes, there are important events such as civil wars and the Magna Carta that pull back powers from the monarchy. But just work with me here on this principle: is that we have this system whereby the state is completely in control. Normally a dictatorship, normally some sort of religion highly involved to that's enforced upon the people. Think about the Reformation, for example, where everyone had to be Catholic, and then everyone had to be the Church of England, and then everyone had to be Protestant, and then everyone had to be Catholic again, then everyone had to be, blah, 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 blah. It was this, these were very, very powerful monarchs, unquestionable religions. And then, as a reaction to all that, we get liberalism, which is the creation of an ideology which is very much saying, no, I have a choice. I don't have to just be part of your collective rule and do what you say because you say to do it. I should have a choice. I am important. I am an individual. I should have some sort of say in my life, in how I kind of make decisions. I'm oversimplifying, but this is where it kind of comes along. And then liberalism, which is then kind of overthrowing the accepted order of monarchies and kings. And you might have events like, especially the kind of the French Revolution. You also get the kind of American War of Independence at that time around them. You then get this new ideology, which is called conservatism, which kind of rises up in opposition to liberalism, to say, whoa, let's preserve these institutions such as the Church of England. Let's preserve institutions such as the monarchy. And we shouldn't be rushing into making these massive changes to our society whereby everyone suddenly gets equality and suddenly gets the vote and suddenly let's just slow down and only make changes when absolutely necessary. And the French Revolution, which we'll come back to in the future, is a key event for conservatives, because the liberal French Revolution was a massacre, and the ruling classes were often beheaded, and the society was was kind of torn apart by this. And so conservatism rose up as a way of saying, whoa, 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 we don't want to suddenly throw off everything and throw our countries into some sort of chaos. We want to preserve what we have. Again, I'm oversimplifying it and I'm putting it into context. Then later we get socialism, which rises up as a kind of a counter block to capitalism and free markets. It also kind of rises up again as a rebellion against some of the remaining kind of dictators that are kind of around. And then you've got key thinkers like Marx and various others, which we'll be looking at in the future. And socialism argues that we are a collective, that we should exist in kind of relationship with one another. And before you I know you might be thinking already, well, hang on a minute, conservatives say similar things. It's different. Conservatives believes in like kind of small little platoons, little kind of communities, localism. Socialists kind of believe in an entire society whereby we are all kind of connected, we have a responsibility to one another, we are social, look at the clue in the word, and therefore we should have a society and an economy and something that kind of reflects that interdependency, a society which is far more equal. And then alongside all of that, we have those people that believe in anarchism, which is those people that believe that actually, although liberals believe in a state and conservatives believe in a state and socialists believe in a state, there are those that believe actually we should just scrap the state entirely and let people kind of make their own kind of decision. It's almost like a kind of a very extreme version of liberalism, if you like, but we'll talk about it more when we kind of get there. But anarchism in a way, or actually, and sometimes anarchism can actually be seen as an extreme form of socialism too, but we'll come back to that in the future. But the reason why I put anarchism kind of alongside here is it doesn't necessarily kind of fit into the timeline in the same way. There have always been people and thinkers that are wanting to kind of pull out of this kind of more traditional core ideologies view and say, actually, no, we need a very different society without kind of ever state at all. So my point is here, going back to that point, ideologies are a reflection of their time and often a reaction against the previous ideology, as are the individual differences within ideologies. So far we're talking between political ideas, between ideologies, but it also applies within them. So when we're looking at classical liberalism, modern liberalism, and other modern forms like neoliberalism, remember you don't need to know neoliberalism within the liberalism topic. Modern liberalism is often thrown up by modern thinkers as a response to classical liberalism, and by understanding that, you can see how the ideas kind of interweave together. Now, your essays should not be storytelling. So I realize that I have gone into an element of storytelling in this video, and I've been kind of like, well, first there was this and then there was this, but your essays really should not be that. Your essay should be more of a direct comparison between here are these ideas and here are those ideas. And yes, you can refer to some events, but that shouldn't be the core, because if you just describe events, you're being descriptive rather than evaluative and analytical. So this is your kind of overall understanding, but don't write your essays in the way that I am describing the kind of the development of the ideology to you. So these are the four which I will be covering this year. This is the 2019 to 2020. If you're watching this in a future year, it may be that I've changed the final one. But liberalism, socialism, conservatism appear in paper 1, and anarchism, which appears in paper 2. And in these videos and in your lessons, I will be doing it in the order here: liberalism, conservatism, socialism, anarchism. The specification actually puts conservatism first, but in my mind it makes more sense to start with liberalism, as that's some of the earlier key thinkers tend to be there, and then this idea that conservatism kind of comes up as a reaction to it tends to work. But in theoretically you can start anywhere, but probably liberalism and conservatism are the two most sensible places to start, and so we will be starting there. So in the next video we will be talking about liberalism, and we'll be talking about where it comes from, some of the core ideas, and starting to look at some of the thinkers. I'm proposing to kind of divide each ideology into a number of videos, so the videos don't get too long, and you can kind of do it as a kind of a bite-sized aspect and supplement it with additional reading. But hopefully that gives you an overview as to what we mean when we say political ideas, what topics you'll be expected to know, what you need to know within each topic, and the kind of an overview to where we're kind of going. So I hope that was useful, and thanks for watching, and let me know if you've got any questions.